Welcome, everyone, to Hit the Books College Basketball Monday edition. I'm Thomas Casale with my man CC here. CC, how you doing today?
Can't complain. This is my first time talking to Thomas, so it'll be an interesting show. Y'all get to see our first interactions live on video, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. We got a lot of stuff coming up. Can't wait to get to it. First, this Hit the Book segment on the Hammer Betting Network is presented by the king of sportsbooks, Circa Sports. Bet like the pros with the world's largest sportsbook right at your fingertips. Circa Sports. Experience big app bets with the highest betting limits, better money line splits with the lowest hold percentage, and the best customer service. Sports betting on the go has never been better. Now you can download Fund and Bet like a pro from anywhere in Nevada. Get your new bookie today at circasports.com. Now, I don't have Circa Sports here in New York, unfortunately, CC. Are you able to bet there?
I am not. I'll be there on Thursday through Sunday, Monday, I believe. I'm headed to Vegas, so I'll be at Circa, sitting in that big old sports book, watching every game I possibly can. So it'll be a good time.
Yeah, I asked Mr. Benson when he's coming to New York, and he said when they drop the tax rate. So I guess I'm stuck for now because I don't think that's coming anytime soon. But hey, let's get to it, CC. There was a lot of great basketball this weekend. It was a good couple of days of action. One of the games I think is interesting. We had Kentucky, Tennessee. I think both these teams are interesting. I want to get your thoughts on this. I took Kentucky on the opener at plus 14. I thought, geez, if there's ever a time you're going to bet Kentucky, this has to be it, right? The bottom fell out against South Carolina. And not only do they cover, but they go and they beat Tennessee on the road. I am never a fan of this Tennessee team. People love them. I know the metrics are great. I just don't think they're the type of team that wins 6 in a row in March. Just want to get your thoughts on both of those teams. Kentucky was one of the favorites coming into the season. Now they're down to 40-1 to win it all.
Yeah, I don't know about a win it all spot, but I agree. I bet Kentucky at 12.5, a little worse number than you, but completely agree. I think Tennessee is a team that's defense looks good. Don't get me wrong, but who have they really played well against? They played Kansas early in the season. They looked really good, but I am complete agreement that this Tennessee team, it seems like time and time again, they do this every single year. We feel like they're good, but I think just from an eyeball test, they really don't have a true go-to guy when it actually matters. And I think that we've seen that quite a few times. The Arizona game, they really couldn't get it done at the end. The Kentucky game recently, Kentucky was at the absolute have to win this game, floor, bottom. I heard every single person talk about how miserable Kentucky was. And it just felt like that spot. Coach Cal wasn't going to let it happen. And they didn't play great by any means and still won the game. So I think it's a testament to Tennessee being not as good as we thought rather than Kentucky playing well by any means.
Yeah, and now, Kentucky is going to come home for a couple of games. They got Georgia. They're going to be in a favorite role. Now, that's where I don't want to touch them. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they have a pretty favorable schedule coming up. I think they were a 9-point favorite versus Georgia. I think I just saw the opener, but completely agree. I am still not buying this Kentucky team by any means. I don't think that they're great. They're rated 34th in KenPom. I don't think they're the 34th best team in the country, but I do think that when their backs against the wall, they have the talent to keep up with Tennessee's.
Okay, now another team that was a favorite coming into the season. I want to get your thoughts on this because I threw this in a couple weeks ago. North Carolina. They were around plus 900. They're sitting at Circa right now, 36-1. So luckily for me, I had a good college football futures season. So I had some futures bet at a book that I would never use for day-to-day betting. So I took the money out and I left 150 in there, threw a fun parlay in there, 7-teamer. The first 6 legs hit. The last leg is North Carolina plus 40-1 plus 40-1 to win it all. It pays $20K. And I want to get your thoughts on that, because I don't know if I love this North Carolina team, but Armando Bacot, March, 40-1. I don't hate it.
Yeah, I think that they have the pieces. The biggest thing for me, and when it comes down to March, like I think one of the bigger notions to track is just overall talent level and talent pool. I think you can't argue that North Carolina has a talented basketball players. RJ Davis, he really hasn't stood out by any means. Yeah, he's 430th in the nation in offensive rating, which isn't bad by any means, but I think that he's a really talented basketball player. Bacot, obviously, Caleb Love, obviously, but I think that they will be in the field. Are they going to win? I would probably bet my money that no, they do not. But I do think that it's a team that really nobody wants to face. Like you don't want to get matched up versus North Carolina in the second or third round by any means.
Right. Now, what if I told you this? What do you think the odds of this were, CC, before the season? At Circa right now, Xavier has lower odds to win the national championship than North Carolina. They are 35-1 and North Carolina 36-1. That's something I didn't think I'd see.
Yeah, Xavier has completely stumped me. They're 15-3, 11. They're the 4th longest win streak in the nation. So props to them. Props to Sean Miller. It's a great story. Just after, I believe I heard, and I could be wrong, and maybe this is a rant, but I think I heard that Sean Miller was proven innocent in the entire scandal and situation they had. And if that's true, I have no clue. I could be making this up, but if true, I am happy that Xavier is popping off right now. He deserves that. He's a really good coach, and it shows. They're beating teams. They beat Marquette in a really good game last night. So Xavier has my number. I don't have them as good as they're playing, and I am not getting in their way.
I would like to get your thoughts on the Big East in general. Last April, I hit Creighton on the opener at 100-1. I have them 80-1. Now, obviously, their bandwagon heading into the season got out of control. They were plus 150 to win the Big East, which I thought was insanity. Creighton hasn't looked as good as people like me thought they might. A lot of good teams in the Big East. Do you think this is a conference with a bunch of good teams, or do you see a couple of teams that could make a run in March?
I think it's a bunch of talented teams. I don't know if I would consider them good. Like a St. John's, for example. I think St. John's is one of the more talented just player versus player teams in the nation, but they don't play any defense. So it's a team, like I was saying with North Carolina, you don't really want to face St. John's many days of the week because they can do what they did last game. And Posh Alexander can drop 40 at any moment. And it's just a team you don't want to see. Same with Providence. We've seen Providence upset a ton of people. Creighton was a bandwagon preseason. They got bit up. They got bit up very fast in the preseason. UConn, again, I was talking about this morning, but if you look at UConn's rankings, they went from 27th in KenPom to 2nd in 1 month. So I think that they got bit up by this public notion that they were a lot better than they were too fast. And we've seen them lose 2 in a row, 1 to St. John's. So I think there's a really talented pool in the Big East. It's probably one of the more talented pools in the nation. But I just don't know if I can give them a champion by any means. I can't crown any of these teams looking at their conference standings. I can't name one of these teams as the champion this year.
Now, going back to the ACC, as we were coming on the air, you mentioned a team that I think's interesting, Clemson. Yep. Clemson is sitting there 200-1. They've been playing good basketball. What are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, so before we hopped on, I said, let's talk about Clemson because I really thought that this number was much higher than 200-1. 200-1 is staggering. They're playing really good basketball. They just beat Duke. I don't like this Clemson team. I actually think that they're due for a lot of drop-off, a lot of regression, and we bet the under in the game Saturday and won on the show. So it was a nice win. I still think that Clemson's due for a lot of drop-off, but 200-1, geez. That is I would probably play that number. They have a lot of really good basketball players. PJ Hall had 29 versus Duke. Hunter Tyson, he played really bad. I think that was due. Still a really good basketball player. They're a good basketball team. I would be curious what their ACC to win the ACC odds are because they're a team that, again, you don't want to face in any night. But I do think that the more talented teams, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, these type of teams are going to really match up well versus Clemson. And so that's why I brought them up. I think that Clemson's getting bid up a little bit too high. I think the interesting game that I have circled for them is February 4th, they play Miami. And I really like that matchup for Miami. I think Isaiah Wong should eat through this team. So that'll be interesting to be circled there.
All right, so that's a team to keep an eye on, maybe a drop-off there for Clemson. I want to get your thoughts on a team that I really swung and missed on, I think here. The preseason, I loved Baylor. I took him at 16-1. I was like, man, this team's got the guard play. I am stunned watching them play defense. I can't even believe what I'm seeing. It's it's like me playing my sons out in the outside in the driveway. I mean, it's terrible. If you were going to say someone like me who is sitting on a Baylor ticket, they're 28-1 now at Circa. Any chance they turn this around for March?
It is one of those unfortunate spots where I also really like this Baylor team. Just looking at the talent, I talk time and time again about talent pool, but they have a basketball team. Yeah. I tell you what, geez, they're a good basketball team. It actually transitions well. I don't know if we're wanting to do a pick now, but the pick that I have for today is Baylor. It's in the Baylor game coming up tomorrow, but we'll push that aside for a second. Yeah, Baylor, they have the guard play. They have flow. They have a good overall, pretty veteran-driven, 2 seniors, 2 juniors basketball team that they're solid. What is their – let's see. Zach's pulling it up there. You can get 38 at Barstool. Yeah, I mean, this is a team. If you saw Baylor in the Final Four, I would not be surprised by any means. I don't think that anybody really wants to match up versus Baylor, which I feel like I've said that 3 times at this point. But Baylor is a very talented team overall, and I think that we have seen – it's scary because, as you say – they've looked like crap. They're 8th in the nation in offensive efficiency. So they're playing pretty good basketball, and yet still they look like crap. So what is their ceiling? And I think that it's high, and it'll be interesting to watch from here. I think you're in a pretty decent buy low spot. They're 23rd in KenPom. They're 16th after the Oklahoma State win, but I think they're a really good basketball team.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It's the NCAA tournament. It's a unique way to end the season, right?
It's
remember North Carolina at this time last year. I was thinking this team's got no shot with the way they're playing defense, right? And they end up they're a basket away from winning it all. So you really never know how it's going to turn out in March. But let's you mentioned you had a bet coming up. Let's segue into that. If anybody has any questions, futures, bets tonight, this week, leave them in the chat, and CC and I will be sure to get to them. Now, a little birdie told me you had a pretty good Friday on the show. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we went 3-1. We lost the Dartmouth under, which we had a shot at the end. They started fouling a lot. I think they scored 25 points in the last 2 minutes, but we didn't deserve that to win. It was at 154 live. So it was close. But yeah, an overall pretty good day. 3-1. We'll take that every single show if possible. We had some insane moves. So the Toledo -8, I believe Zach sent it to us 45 minutes later was at 11. I think that was just a pretty bad line overall, close 12.5. I think that was just a pretty bad line overall. We talked about it. I think that it's due to injury. The KenPom just hadn't updated their site. It was showing that one of their best players was playing, and he was not playing. He tore his ACL. So we caught that early, got some good COV, got a good win, and overall pretty happy with the first show.
All right, now I know we're doing this on Monday. I know your games have already tipped off. I have a game tonight in Conference USA. I took the points with Western Kentucky. This was a team I was really high on to start the year. It's like a team that never really puts it together. But you look at their last 6 games, they lost 3 close ones. They've won 3 in a row. UAB is kind of, or not UAB, Florida Atlantic here is kind of living on the edge. They've won their last 5 by 4 points or fewer on the road tonight. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm a Birmingham boy, so Conference USA is kind of my pulse in my blood, and I really hate this Western Kentucky team because they beat up on my Blazers the other day. So I unfortunately have watched them in person and seen that they're a pretty good basketball team. So I would tend to agree with you. I think Florida Atlantic, also who I believe, they play UAB in the coming future, but no, they beat UAB as well by 2. So Florida Atlantic, as you said, they've been they've been scraping by. They barely beat Charlotte. They went FIU in overtime. North Texas is a really good win at home. But on the road, Conference USA, I agree. There's when you talk conferences, you talk about the Big East. This is a really good basketball conference overall in the Conference USA. I think Western Kentucky, UAB, Florida Atlantic, North Texas, there's a lot of really good scrappy basketball teams. So I think in most cases, these type games become really scrappy. UAB likes to push pace and play their style, and then the exact opposite with North Texas. So you get completely different basketball every game, which is going to force a lot of variance, but also force a lot of upsets, I believe.
Yeah, this was one of my favorite conferences entering the season. Just a bunch of good teams. If you haven't gotten to watch Conference USA, now I know you said you are close with the UAB team. They're tonight. They got a tough one. Middle Tennessee, always kind of tough at home here. No jelly tonight, but you say get ready for Saturday, right? When they host North Texas in a big one.
Yeah, I should have the information on Friday, so hopefully we can talk about it on the Friday show. But Jelly should be back on Saturday for the North Texas game, hopefully. Unfortunate, I go to every UAB basketball game, and I'm going to be out of town for the North Texas game, which is like UAB will be rocking, and I'm quite upset about that. But yeah, it's a night. This game's going to be really good. They're going to be without Jelly, so Eric's going to have to score, and I really don't know if he can shoot. I don't trust his mechanics to be able to shoot consistently for any amount of time. But I think overall UAB has a talent pool. We pulled in so many transfers last year that 2 versus Middle Tennessee seems pretty soft. I didn't bet this game by any means. The only thing I'm sitting on, and you might get a laugh out of it, is I do have a UAB to win the championship future. To get plus 50,000, and I had to. Like, come on. And so I'll be sitting on that, and if it wins, I will be somewhere having a very good time. The money will be nice, but more that the Blazers win the championship. Imagine that would be crazy for the city of Birmingham.
Well, it's interesting because again, the tournament is just so different than the regular season. Guard play is big. Last year, UAB had the worst luck of any team by drawing Houston in the first. That was a team I think could have done some serious damage if they had just gotten a little bit better draw in the first round. And I actually thought they played pretty well in that game, but. I mean, Houston. When Houston's on, man, good luck.
And I got a tidbit for that one. Trey Jemison, the 7-footer on their team, the center, had a torn MCL during that game. He played. He said he wasn't going to miss. So, though Houston, don't get me wrong, I think we stood no chance. I like the grit from the team. It made me happy to see that we competed. I think it was like an 8-point game at halftime. So
yeah, I had UAB. I still took them with the points. I thought. I mean, it just Houston's one of those teams, man. When they're at their top level, they're just almost impossible to beat. And they just unfortunately that night they couldn't miss.
Yeah, it was an impressive win. I wasn't upset by any means. I was more happy that Houston. If we were going to lose to somebody, I was completely cool with it being Houston. So it was a good win by Houston. They obviously went and did some pretty good things in the tournament, so not too upset there.
All right, so let's look at the week ahead. I mean, I'm a pretty selective bettor anyway, but I don't have a ton of stuff this week that's really jumped out at me. I know you said you have something you're looking at on Tuesday. What do you got for us, CC?
Yeah, I got one, and it goes back to the idea of you talking about Baylor, and you say their defense is really bad. It looks like how you would play your kids in the driveway, and I completely agree. But I think that leaves an opening for one thing, and that would be unders in their games. So I'm going to take the Baylor versus Texas Tech under 146.5. It looks like it's been juiced. It was 147 before the show, and so it is juiced 146.5, but that's fine. That's part of the battle you have with having the show this early. But I like the Baylor under 146.5 for a couple reasons. First off, Texas Tech is playing very fast this year. They are 128th in tempo. And this is 100%. I mean, it's adjusted tempo, don't get me wrong. But this is because of who they've played. They played South Carolina State to a 77 possession game. Houston Christian to an 85. These are two teams that are going to do this always. Jackson State, they scored 102 on. Because they had just had a close game versus Eastern Washington. They needed to embarrass Jackson State. So we're seeing a scheduling pileup that has just forced them to look a lot faster than they were. And I think due to that, we see a really high number. This in a Texas Tech game with Mark Adams as coach, I don't see many 147s in most cases. Also, Baylor, yes, they've been efficient, but they have a whole bunch of guards who are going to need the ball in their hand. They're going to waste time. If they get stopped in transition, it's going to be an offense that's set up by a pick and roll. And this number just seems really high. So I like the under 146.5 for the Baylor Texas Tech game as the first bet for the Hit the Books Monday, and it doesn't seem like we're going to have too many on this first show. This is like a theory show. I like it.
And so this is similar to Kentucky, right? This is now Baylor's looked awful on defense. Now the numbers to a point where you want to go the other way.
Yep. 100%. I think in most cases, like I don't have these numbers in front of me, but I believe if you were to look at Baylor totals by any means, I think that you would see more often than not they're going to be under 140-ish. This is purely a guess just based off like what I know from Baylor basketball games. And 140 is the national average for points a game. And it seems like this Baylor team is not really trying to be they scored 83 versus West Virginia, who West Virginia has pushed the 130th tempo in the nation. So they're not trying to do anything crazy. I think that West Virginia game is probably one of the bigger numbers you'll see. They also have been unfortunate in the fact that they saw Kansas State, who I don't know if you've kept up with Kansas State, has lit up everyone. So like you're seeing some inflated numbers just by teams shooting lights out. 77 against Iowa State. And so I don't think you see this kind of shooting. If Texas Tech scores 80, then by all means they can have it. But I think Baylor's due for some drop off in the defensive section.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned Kansas State. They've been hot against everyone. They're going to stay hot against Kansas at home. Ken Pom has this Kansas a slight road favorite. I think that's correct. What do you see in that game?
Yeah, I think we talked about both of these teams. On Friday we discussed the Kansas future at 13-1. I believe it's 11-1 now. I think this number's probably right, though I do think that Kansas is a significantly better team. I think Kansas State is a team that you don't want to get in front of. Currently, they are hitting everything, and if you've played significant amount of basketball, you know when that ball is coming off of your hand, right, you will shoot it from anywhere and feel as good as you can about it. And that's where Kansas State is right now. I don't think that they have the players that in a neutral court with 2 weeks of distance without basketball, I would take Kansas every day of the week. But just current situation, Kansas State, man, they're feeling it. I saw, what's his name, point guard, pull one from the logo the other day with the utmost confidence. And so they're loving life. They're shooting basketballs pretty well, and I do not want to get in that train by any means.
Bunting for Calder asked if I would take Western Kentucky at 4.5. That's actually the number I got. I played it last night. It went up to 5 for a little bit. And again, listen, Western Kentucky has burned me this year. I had them against Louisville. Louisville shot like 90% from 3. It was the best game they played all season. But I feel like CC said, these Conference USA games, they're going to be a lot of tight games. These teams are really good. They get after each other. So, yeah, over a possession, I took the 4.5. Going back to Tuesday, the team you had mentioned earlier is an interesting game. I don't have a good feel for Wake Forest. Clemson is at Wake Forest, a 1-point favorite. Any thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I really – it's weird. I've bet Wake Forest unders a few times at this point. And I've been proven time and time again that Wake Forest's offense is actually pretty good. And I have their numbers low. So it's one of those teams that, this isn't baseball. We're not standing at bat. We really don't have to swing at everything. And Wake Forest is one of those teams I just don't understand. So I have my number on them. Let's see. I make Clemson a 3.5-point favorite. And I don't like Clemson. So I'm probably Wake Forest is a 3-point favorite. So that shows. I really do not trust my number on Wake Forest any. If I did, Clemson would be the bet because I have them as a 3-point favorite and they're a 3-point dog. So that would make a whole bunch of sense, wouldn't it? It becomes that easy, I think, sometimes. Yep. So I'll look into it, but I really just 13-5 Wake Forest, 35th in the nation in offensive efficiency. And just if you watch their games, I just don't think that they are this. I do think that Clemson is the winner here, and so 3-point dog. Okay. You're starting to convince me I might have to take some Clemson.
All right. Now, moving on to Wednesday, there's a game I like. I like Arkansas on the road at Missouri. It's similar. I think this is a game to buy Arkansas. I had Kansas as a slight favorite on the road against Missouri. Missouri's team has played well. They've had an easy schedule. They're tougher at home. I know Arkansas is still without Nick Smith, but this is a game I think Missouri plays fast. Arkansas gets out in transition, can get some easy buckets. So I like them. Ken Palm's got it -1. You have any opinion on this one?
Yeah, I would make it 1 as well. Missouri, another team. I think that this one has stumped a lot of people. They're starting to fall. They're starting to fall to earth a little bit. They lost by 18 to Texas A&M, so they're starting to fall a little bit. But man, they looked good. They were a 4-point underdog to Kansas at home earlier in the season. I bet Kansas in that game. I don't trust that Missouri has the talent pool, but I really don't know if Arkansas does. I do think that Arkansas probably in the situation is a better spot, but Missouri has been packing out at home. I think that their home court advantage can't be slept on by any means.
Yeah.
I was impressed in that Kansas game. So this is one that I would, if it's 161 total, I'm probably leaning more towards an under than anything. That just seems really high for an Arkansas team. Arkansas is 55th in the nation in tempo, and I think if you watch most of their games, it doesn't play in a 155 type range. They played 69 possessions versus Vanderbilt, but they scored 84. So are they that good of a shooting team? I don't know. I think the possessions played closer to an under here at 161.
All right, yeah. I mean, Missouri is that home court advantage is pretty crazy, and I know a lot of people didn't think they would be good this year. They've played a lot better, but so that'll be an interesting game. Going to Thursday, I want to wrote this down because I want to get your thoughts on the two teams that make me want to bang my head against the wall. Indiana and Illinois are meeting on Thursday. It's at Illinois. Ken Palm's got them around a 4-point favorite. Man, first of all, Indiana I thought was way overvalued entering the season. I think they were like 16, 18 to 1 to win it all, which I didn't want any part of. Thought they would be a little bit better than they are. I don't know about the coaching over there in Bloomington, but what are your thoughts on this game?
It's funny that you say bang against the wall and you just say those two teams. So I actually decently like Indiana. I'll talk about that in a minute. But if I was to have to choose two teams to bang my head against the wall, Illinois would definitely be one of the two. The other one would be Iowa. These two teams, man, I think Illinois was overrated coming into the season. I think any team, listen, I could be a hater, but I don't think that Matthew Myers or Mayer, however you say his last name, is a good team basketball player. Since his Baylor days, I have not liked him. And I think that if he is a significant part of your offense, he's shooting 25% of their shots. I don't like that. And so in most cases, I'm not going to like this Illinois team. Indiana, on the other hand, they have all the talent they could need. It just comes down to also Xavier Johnson's out. So that's a pretty big deal. But it all comes down to coaching. I think we've seen Indiana burn leads more than any team in the nation. I watched that Iowa game. They were up like 25 and they got burnt in a heartbeat. So coaching, I think that they have the talent over Illinois. I could be wrong there, but I just am a hater of Matthew Meyer.
Yeah, I mean, two teams I just haven't been able to guess right this year. Big Ten in general, I got to stay away from the Big Ten. Probably 40% of my losses this year.
It's tough. Like even this Michigan team, we thought basically everybody thought in the preseason Michigan would be good. And if you watch these games, I think I've bet a couple of Michigan unders, and the one that just drove me crazy was Ohio, Michigan. I bet the under. It's still somehow hit in overtime, but geez, like they let Ohio compete with a nationally ranked Michigan team who is supposed to be up there. And I'm not buying it by any means. Dickinson's decent, but they haven't surrounded enough of a basketball team. There's a lot of players in the nation right now, but there's not many basketball teams.
There's a team I want to get your thoughts on here, CC. They play two games in a 3-day span here. Arizona on Thursday, they got USC at home, -7 on Ken Palm. Saturday, UCLA comes calling. UCLA's -3 on the road. Arizona just lost at home recently for the first time in 2 years. I don't love this Arizona team. I don't know what your thoughts on them are. I took USC against them a couple times last year. They covered both times. They kind of slow them down. They have the front line to kind of compete with them. Any thoughts on Arizona in either of these two matchups?
Yeah, Arizona has been a weird team. They just looked pretty awful versus Oregon. I think this USC matchup probably favors Arizona better than the UCLA game. And I think that if you can shut down Drew Peterson, you shut down most of USC overall. I really don't like this USC team by any means. I think that we've seen them struggle. Like they lost the opening game versus Florida Gulf Coast. They didn't look great versus Vermont. They struggled versus Mount St. Mary's. They struggled versus BYU. So I don't think that in most cases USC has looked good. I would probably lean Arizona in that first one and then headed into a game versus UCLA. That's a pretty tough spot. And I would lean towards UCLA on that one. I don't know if I would want to lay it. Arizona's a weird team. What's their pace? They're up there. They're 13th in the nation. So you could be down 5 and still cover spread pretty quick because these possessions are just so bang, bang. And it's how they want to play. It's not like they're getting loose and trying to win by 5. They know what they're doing. They'll get 6, 7, 8 possessions in a minute, and you could be in trouble holding a +3 in the last minute of a game for sure.
Yeah, in the last game, I want to get your thoughts on before we get out of here, CC. This is the one. There was a team who played Arizona last year in the NCAA tournament, TCU, who I still think's a little bit undervalued in the market. I had them against Kansas State at home on Saturday. They played Kansas on Saturday, and KenPom has this number, Kansas -8. I looked at that and I was like, really? I kind of like this TCU team. I know sometimes they struggle to shoot from 3, but they turn you over. They get out in transition. Kansas -8 on Saturday against TCU. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, TCU is an interesting team. They talk about some dogs. I was watching that Kansas State game, and it seems like they are the first 3 people to dive on the court if there's a ball loose. And I love to watch it. I was telling one of my friends if I could repick teams and repick like my blood that I'm an Alabama fan, a UAB fan. I've been forced to be so as I was growing up. But I think TCU would probably be my basketball team. You just have to love the heart that they play the game with. That said, I really like this Kansas team. I talked about in the last show. I think they're the best team in the nation. 8 is too many points. I would agree. But I think in most cases, Kansas gets it done. And so then you're just hoping that they don't get it done by too much and there's not fouls at the end. And with this TCU team, I really don't know off the top of my head. It looks like they get to the free throw line a lot, but they don't foul a ton. Just based off their scrappiness, I would imagine that they would be in foul trouble at the end. So an 8, you're really not struggling with potentially getting hurt by some fouls at the end. But if it was like 6, 5.5, I would lean towards Kansas.
Yeah, and TCU, I know some smart people had them at like 80-1 to win the national championship. They're down to 36-1. But you mentioned Kansas. Now, Kansas, I had them last year preseason at 18-1. I didn't like him as much this year, but they might be a better team this year than last year. What do you think?
I would agree. The issue that I have with Kansas is I think too many times that they get stuck in an offense, and I really hope that they figure out where their consistent scoring is going to come when they need it. I agree. I've said that they're the best team in the nation, and probably biting my tongue on that because there's a lot of tier 2s like right behind them. My issue is I think that they rely too much on Grady Dick. He is a really good basketball player, but it's reliant. And if you've watched these games, I really don't know a metric to put on this, but if you watch their games, it's not reliant on Grady Dick in the sense that the offense is built towards him. He's only getting 22.9% of the shots. It's more that they get stuck and they just don't know what to do. And then he runs over, catches the ball, and it can hit. He's 81st in the nation in efficiency. Jeez. So it's like he's a really good basketball player, but these plays aren't drawn up entirely for him. And I think that he's going to have to step up and be the give me the ball guy. Jalen Wilson is that, but they're going to need a second. I think Grady Dick has to figure out his way into the offense if they want to be the best team in the nation.
All right, sounds good. Well, so I think for the first show, I think we each have one official bet. Is that correct? You have the under in the Baylor game on Tuesday?
Yeah. Zach, did you lock those in? We got the under in the Baylor game, and then you were on, Western Kentucky at 4.5?
Yeah, I'm on Western Kentucky 4.5. And you can knock me down for Arkansas. I'll probably be on Arkansas. So you can give me both of those for my plays, and you have the Baylor Texas Tech under.
Yep, perfect. I don't think we have an Arkansas line yet, so maybe we'll just say something about it. And unfortunately, with college basketball being an everyday thing and not being able to talk every day, that there's some that are just going to slip through the cracks. But I do agree on that Arkansas line.
Okay, sounds good. And thank you, everybody, for watching Hit the Books on the Hammer Betting Network, presented by Circa Sports. Bet like the pros with the world's largest sports book right at your fingertips. Experience big at bets, better money line splits, the best customer service, and more. Download your new bookie today at circasports.com. Well, CC, the first show's in the books. I think it went well. I think it was good. What do you think?
Yeah, it was easy. Monday, I feel like this is probably going to be the continuance of the show, and if anybody is watching has opinions on like start times, because I know that these markets are fast. They're not opening at 4 o'clock, and we kind of have to post something. So we're stuck in a weird dilemma with college basketball. It's just a little harder than college football. But the main thing is, I think that Monday is going to be these futures based shows, and then Friday becomes a Saturday slate talk because 155 games last Saturday. So it becomes pretty easy there.
Yeah, and of course, if you have any questions, anything, you can always hit me up at the Tom Casale on Twitter. CC, tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, it's Twitter at Keep Betting Co. Keep Betting Co. And yeah, be sure to like, subscribe. Also, if we check the comments on these videos, so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out there. I'm sure Zach will send them over to us because the guy in the back end doing all the heavy lifting.
All right, that's it for the first show, Monday show for Thomas Casale, for CC. We'll be back Friday for college basketball Hit the Books, but that's it for this version. We will see you next Monday on Hit the Books.